Well, hello there. It is great to see you again, and welcome back to the latest installment of Lessons by the Lake, the Oswego Private Wealth Show. I am your host and moderator, Ryan Ruff, and as always, we have the managing director of Oswego Private Wealth in Mr. Bob Dreitis joining us. We're going to dive into another wealth management topic. That's what we do each time we get together here on the show, but we've got a special guest with us today. We're going to take a little different approach here on today's show. But before we bring them on, I want to kind of set the scene, frame it up for you a little bit today. I want you to, especially if you're a regular listener or viewer of the show, you're familiar with these conversations that Bob and I have. How many times have we talked about the importance of utilizing a network of professionals to help manage your portfolio, to build that true wealth plan around you and your assets and really your personal and professional life as a whole? Well, that's what we're doing today. We're bringing on a really special guest, and Mr. Michael Beck. Michael Beck is the president of Eliciting Excellence, a professional partner networker that, works hand in hand with Bob on a lot of different things. We're going to learn about what those might be today. And, we're going to dive into what Michael's role specifically is for these clients and really the great work that he and his team over at Eliciting Excellence are doing on a regular basis. So with that being said, let's go ahead and bring the guys on. Bob, Michael, it's great to see you guys today. How are we doing?
Morning. Good morning. Good day, Ryan. It's nice to see you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Ryan.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to be with you guys today. Excited to have you aboard, Michael. We got a good conversation we're going to get into today. Before we get into the nuts and bolts of our discussion, I think it might be worthwhile, Bob, if you could share with us, how your relationship with Michael and his company, Eliciting Excellence, how that began and the types of things that you guys have been, working on together.
Wow, perfect. Thank you, Ryan. Well, first of all, let me introduce Michael professionally. He's an executive strategist. He's an author. He's the president of Eliciting Excellence, and has a firm that for over 20 years now has been specializing in executive coaching and helping leaders get paid and helping business owners get paid. And he's done working effectively with leaders, developing smart strategies, making better decisions. As background, Michael's got a Wharton MBA, as well as an engineering degree from the University of Pennsylvania. And he works with a wide range of clients domestically and internationally from diverse industries like construction, financial services, manufacturing, distribution, healthcare, technology, defense. And in his work, Michael offers assessments and executive coaching, all designed to help successors succeed and owners get paid. And so Michael was introduced to me by another good friend of ours, somebody who I actually hope we can get on a future show, who works in the area of public accounting. And within his accounting practice, Don Beelan is the person who introduced us, and we're going to have Don on our show. Don works with privately held and family businesses, helping them make smart decisions from an accounting and from a risk standpoint. And so he introduced us, and Michael's also the founder of a group called Professional 50. And Professional 50 is a network of some of the best business transition professionals in the Pacific Northwest, I'd say even in the country. And that's like business brokers, business valuation, due diligence experts, governance, investment bankers, M&A, attorneys, high-end CPAs. And then within that framework, of course, I'm within the framework of the Professional 50 in wealth management and family office services for our clients. And then Michael does his coaching, successor development, and succession recruiting, all within that framework. But Michael's our leader. Michael leads Professional 50, which is just a terrific group of high-end elite professionals, the kind of people on our virtual family office we love to have on our team.
Yeah, Michael, we appreciate you jumping in today. I mean, anything, does that all resonate with what Bob had thrown out to you?
Well, and it's even accurate. No, guys, I appreciate being here. I got introduced to Bob, and we had an instant connection. I like his philosophies about how he helps people and the work he does, and he's always striving to do more and more to help folks, which of course is why he's also a member of that Pro 50 group that we have. And so I appreciate being invited to join you all.
Yeah, we got a great conversation teed up, and we're going to get into your world here, Michael. Let's dive head first in, Michael. First kind of question to you is that you personally have seen some interesting insights about some boomer-owned businesses as you've been working and networking your way throughout the country. Tell us a little bit about these insights and what you've been seeing on your end.
Oh yeah, you bet, Ryan. Good question. I and we work around the country and I network around the country, and years ago did a bit of research into the whole boomer-owned business picture, and found some interesting things. Um, the SBA says there are about 6 million boomer-owned employers. In other words, they have employees. Right, sorry, 6 million small ones. 60% are boomer owned, right? And so, about 3.6 million are boomer owned. We'll call the other 2.4 Gen X owned, the sort of the 35 to 55-year-old folks. And also, I found a spreadsheet on the US Census site of population by age. And so if you take roughly that 19-year span of the boomer era, and you add up population, it turns out about 4.5% of boomers own a business. And if you take the 19 years below that and add that population divided into the remaining small businesses, turns out about 3%. So about 3% of Gen Xers own a business. And so the fact that, you see, the fact that they're kind of close, I don't think is very surprising. And in fact, I think as that the Gen Xers get a bit older, that 3% is going to rise probably to about 4.5%. And so it's not surprising until you think about it a little deeper, and then it becomes alarming.
Yeah, so you mentioned this being alarming. Talk to me. Why is that? I mean, that's a great word. Why is it alarming in your eyes, there, Michael?
Thanks, Ryan. Here's the thing. Here's why it's alarming. That rise from 3 to 4.5% only represents 1/3 of the boomer businesses. And that means 2/3 of boomer businesses will not find an individual buyer. It's simply math. And so I think many owners who feel they're going to be able to easily sell might be surprised.
Yeah, and in so many instances, I mean, you work so hard to create a business of value, and then you look forward to retirement. Bob and I have talked on our show a lot about the that idea of life beyond retirement, even, and maybe the sale or acquisition of a business. So to hear that the rates and the abilities for buyers out there is rather seldom for boomers, I hear the alarming ability there that pops into the question here. But Michael, what about like any sort of strategic acquisitions or private equity firms that could even come into play? Do those factor in?
You will, of course, and another good insight. And I hear, and I'm sure Bob has heard as well, there's so much money chasing deals out there. And fair enough. But here's the thing, there are two things. Number one, they're not going to throw good money at a poor deal. And number two, again, I've done further research and asking around and looking up on that internet thing they talk about. It turns out about 15 to 25% of all deals on the market close. Only 15 to 25%. And so if we're generous and say 25% of all those businesses out there that are looking for a buyer, 25% close, it still leaves 75% of the 2/3 that didn't find that individual buyer. And the math shows that that leaves a full 50% of boomer-owned businesses won't find an individual buyer, a strategic acquisition, or get funded. And
Yeah.
so I find it alarming. Now, there are things we can do to help clients, and that's what we do. But I think it's important for owners to understand that procrastinating right now is not very smart, because I think we're going to see some interesting fallout from this growing surplus.
Yeah. Michael, Ryan, if I could just interject something here and why this topic is so near and dear to my heart. And by the way, as Michael and I have been talking, and if you go to Michael's website, you can see just some white papers and some reports on things like that. But this particular report that he's entitled "Planning on Selling Your Business?" question mark, think again. The reason it's so near and dear to my heart is because those of you who know my story, um, 40 years ago, 30 years ago, my father, as an entrepreneur, he ultimately, and he worked in the M&A space, and he bought and sold restaurants and bars, and that was the work that he did. When my father was ready to step away, he simply closed down the business for lack of really being able to pursue a good buyer. And that's, I can't help thinking, had he been surrounded by professionals like Michael and gotten better advice, things would have been different. Now, he was very successful. He did well. He lived a great life in retirement, but nonetheless, I believe things could have been different had he had more better advice. And this topic right here of is really powerful in my mind. And to use Michael's word, it's alarming. And I know a lot of people, particularly as we've gone through COVID these last few years, we have supply chain issues, we have regulatory issues, we have employee engagement issues as this new world order that's changing all around us. Um, we don't want our business owners, our clients, our friends to be the last one out the door, because I think there's really a dramatic risk of of not doing the planning at this stage. So I'll turn it back over to you guys on that. So.
Sure. Yeah. No, really interesting topic here. I mean, and there are so many elements at play, right? When you're going through that process of preparing your business for sale, it can be a little daunting in some instances. But Michael, you had mentioned that percentage of boomers that aren't able to really to find a prospective buyer. Are we seeing any sort of effects of that percentage of that surplus really?
So, Ryan, that's a good, insightful question. And the answer, fortunately for owners, is no, not yet. I mean, typically in our minds, we often think of retirement age as being 65. But I've noticed something over the years, and people have explained why the boomer wave hasn't really kicked in, that silver tsunami. And they've had different theories. I predicted when it would start, and so I think my approach is right. And that is that way back when life expectancy was about 70 years old, and people were retiring at 65. Well, now life expectancy is much closer to 80, and consequently, they're retiring 10 years later, 75. Well, the leading edge of the baby boom turned 75 last year. And so this wave has started. And as I talk to advisors around the country, they're reporting a significant uptick in activity. And this is going to grow and grow and grow over the next 4 or 5 years and then stay up there for about 10 years. The thing we're talking about, that surplus, is going to kick in a greater and greater fashion. And then once it's in, that's what you have to deal with. And so I think, if you're working with somebody like Bob, anyone else, an accountant, wealth manager, or an estate planner, acting sooner is far better than acting later, because there are going to be some significant negative implications to this growing surplus.
Sure, sure. So when you say some of these negative implications, rattle a few off for us if you don't mind. I mean, as somebody goes through this process, prepares for it, I mean, they should be aware of some of these implications that exist. What do you see on this end?
Yeah, yeah. So the implications are a little different whether you're looking at an internal or an external sale. So I talk about external sales as being exits. And so there are a few things that happen. As the surplus grows, multiples, they take the value of a company and they apply a multiple to it to establish a price. Multiples are going to be dropping, number one. Number two is, with so many sellers to choose from, buyers are going to be much more selective, Meaning if you go to market and everything isn't just right, buyer's going to move on to somebody else. And the third thing is that with so much on the market, buyers will start to become more demanding. They may require you to stay on for several years, or change the terms of the payout or something. And so the sooner you act, the less you're going to be subject to those. When it comes to internal sales or successions, there's some really interesting and sometimes not obvious challenges. Yes, if the successor doesn't do well, you have a successor, they don't do well, they miss payments. Here are the things that can happen. Of course, you may have to come out of retirement to run the company once more and then resell it. And that's not fun in and of itself. But here are the other interesting things. Number one, of course, is you no longer have a successor. And the further we go into this wave, and as other companies are trying to find successors when they can't sell, it's going to be harder and harder to find that good person. Number two is that, of course, there's going to be a smaller field to choose from. By the very nature that the payments have been missed, it means the company's not doing as well, which means the value now is lower. And so even if you go out to the market to sell, you're going out with a much lower value than you did many years ago when you first handed the keys over. And then, like we just talked about previously, with so many sellers on the market, you'll have a harder and harder time closing that deal. And so it's going to be a bit of a challenge. The upshot of that is it's pretty important to get it right going in. So in other words, have the right successor, make sure they're fully developed, so you maximize the chance they succeed. Don't screw it up, because if it happens, it's not looking pretty.
Sure, sure. So, I mean, you're saying take action, but at the same time, you get more or less one shot at this. You want to make sure that your plan is in place, it's effective, everybody's feeling good about it, so that the sale, the acquisition, can be a successful maneuver, to, incomplete. But Bob, we've talked about the human element. We talk about it a lot on this show and where it comes into play in all aspects of wealth management. In your eyes, Bob, and maybe some conversations that you've had with current clients, maybe past clients even, where do you see the human element coming into play with these types of conversations? A client comes in and wants to start that dialogue, shall we say, about selling the business. Maybe they're interested in doing it. Talk me through what those conversations look like from your side of the table as you work with clients.
Well, I love that question, and I actually would like to loop Michael into this, because this is in the heart
Sure.
and soul of both, not just my work, but his work. And within that human element, I think the one thing that differentiates me and my firm from most other wealth managers, financial advisors, and it is that I deeply understand that this is about so much more than money. And so does Michael, because Michael talks about, and we've had deep conversations on this as we talk about what the work we're doing and how we're helping people together. And everybody talks about the quality of earnings, right? The quality of earnings. Well, Michael digs deeply into the quality of leadership, and then coaches along that successor plan and the leadership within the company. And I'd like to just toss it over to Michael and ask him to talk a little bit about quality of leadership and the kind of work that he does in this area.
Thanks, Bob. So it's interesting. I developed this several years ago, and I coined it a quality of leadership report. It's comparable to quality of earnings. And one of the reasons I developed this, it's where we do an assessment on all the key leaders in the company, put it in a consolidated report so it's easy for an owner or prospective buyer to review. One of the reasons I've done that is because, again, my research has shown that the value of a company can be affected as much as 20% by the strength of the leadership team. And I just wanted to add on to what Bob mentioned. Again, in surveys that have been done, most owners are not simply interested in the dollars, the value of the company. They have a true concern for um, the welfare of their employees and their employees' families. They have a true concern for their customers, and they want to make sure they're continued to be well taken care of. And in many cases, when it's within a family succession, they want to keep the business going in the family. They want to create a legacy. So it's far more than just money.
Yeah, and this is so fascinating, and this is so interesting to do, because one of the things that as we go through our questions, and the things that we talk to the leaders, the owners, as they're preparing for succession and starting to think about it, we assess what kind of a leader are you. And I think I actually talked about this on our last podcast. Are you a command and control? Are you a more collaborative leader? Have you really loosened the reins? As I think I joked about the last time, you don't just hand the keys to your successors and say, I'm going fishing, I'm going golfing. I got a tennis game at 2:00 today. It's like you just can't walk away like that. And I think there's some deep work that needs to be done at times for a leader, the owner, to assess, have they prepared their team appropriately? What kind of a leader are they? What have they been? And sometimes that's as deep of work as developing the successors.
Sure. There's, as we had mentioned, there's a lot of moving pieces within the sale of a business as a whole. Michael, Bob and I, we talk a lot about on this show is the importance of that team of professionals around somebody's wealth, being able to work in harmony, in tandem with each other, and just be able to communicate effectively so that everybody's on the same page. Could you speak a little bit to the importance of that from your side of the table?
Yeah, absolutely. Frankly, we often get brought in what I call downstream. In other words, they're working with their advisors. I want that client to understand that advisor is the rock star in this. And so we always loop the advisor in when we work with clients, because they often have even more insight into some of the challenges the owner has created. I was going to be careful with the wording on that, right? And so I often get insight from the advisor onto how best to help the successor or the leaders. And frankly, sometimes I get brought in to work with the owner on how to let go, how to hand off stuff, how to further develop the successor. Because there are some things that I can't do as an executive coach. I can't allow the successor to make a decision. Only the owner can. Only the owner can reemphasize the culture and define the culture of the company. So often we're all working as a team on this.
Yeah, and I want to emphasize what Michael just said. We find most of the time business owners do not have a coordinated team, underline the word team, of elite professionals working around them. They have a CPA, they have a business attorney, they might have an estate planning attorney, they might have a financial advisor, but they might not even know each other, let alone being working together. And I think that is significant, that the team come in early, that there is a coordinated team. And that's what Pro 50 is all about, what Michael's created there. And that's what our virtual family office framework at Oswego Private Wealth is all about, is having the right people come in as appropriate, but as early as they should be coming in, not after the proverbial horse is out of the barn. And how do we stop this? How do we stop this problem?
Sure. Guys, this has been a really beneficial episode, especially for anybody that may be entertaining that idea of selling their business. Bob, you brought up the white paper that Michael's team had put together, planning on selling your business. Think again, a lot of great information within that white paper, and we'll certainly make that available, to our audience on the different platforms when we release this episode. But as we're bringing our conversation to a head here, Michael, could you bottom line it for us today? I mean, this conversation surrounding the idea of selling your business in today's climate. Any final key takeaways that you might want to leave our viewers and our listeners with today?
Sure, I'd be happy to. One, of course, is, as I've been saying, taking action sooner is better than taking action later. But the other thing is, I think increasingly you need to get it right going into the market, because you probably will only get one chance. Once you go out to the market, if challenges are uncovered, mistakes, flaws, weaknesses, you're likely will get passed over. And so work with your advisor, do some preliminary work, get a quality of earnings, quality of leadership, make sure it's good, and maximize your likelihood of closing a deal.
And Bob, any final thoughts from your side, as the wealth manager that you might want to leave our audience with today?
No, I will just add my amen to what Michael just said. It's perfect.
I love it. I love it. Well, Michael, you're working very closely with a lot of business owners in this capacity. Obviously you're working closely with Bob, to move some sales of businesses along. Michael, if anybody out there in our audience is interested in reaching out to you and your company, Eliciting Excellence, and learning a little bit more about you guys, or even just maybe opening up a dialogue, what would be the best way they can get in touch with you guys?
Well, of course, we'd love for them to visit the website, learn about the services, elicitingexcellence.com. We'll make that available on the screen, but there's a contact form there. They're welcome to reach out to me directly at mbeck@elicitingexcellence.com as well.
Fantastic. Thank you, Michael. Well, hey, we appreciate you carving some time out of your day to be with us. I know you're a busy guy. You got clients to serve. We will let you get back to doing that, but we appreciate you being with us here on Lessons by the Lake today.
Thanks again for having me as a guest.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Thank you, Ryan.
Of course. And hey, guys, look, we want to say one final goodbye and thank you, of course, to our audience. We appreciate you guys being along with us here for the conversation. If you took anything away from today's discussion surrounding the sale of a business, maybe it benefited you in any way, shape, or form, do us a favor, leave a comment under the show, subscribe to it on whichever platform you checked us out on today, and then, of course, share this information with any friends, family, business owners that might be approaching a sale themselves, anybody that you think would benefit from these conversations. I've said it once before, I'll continue to say it. We're taking the same strategies, solutions, and ultimately just conversations that Bob is having with his clients, that Bob's having with Michael regarding the sale of businesses. We're bringing all these conversations right here to you guys on this show, and we would hate to have you miss out on any great topics down the road. So for Bob, for Michael, I'm Ryan. We're going to go ahead and say so long, but we appreciate you guys being with us on today's episode of Lessons by the Lake.